The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet, but for many of us, it's still out of sight and out of mind. Last year, scientists off the coast of Chile discovered a new species of sea sponge. And in July, Wellington artist Debbie Fish travelled halfway around the world to celebrate that discovery in her own way, through sculpture. Her work, Glass Sponge, is fragile, intricate, and made entirely from found and recycled materials, a reminder of the delicate balance between life and the human impact on our ecosystems. Today, on Articulate, we'll talk about how art can change the way we see our world, and ask whether it can help us notice what we might be losing before it's too late. Okay, thank you so much for coming in today, Debbie.
Thank you, Andre.
Yeah, it's so nice to have you here in our office, our studio.
It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I guess firstly, can you tell me a bit about the moment that you were asked to or invited to the Seiko Biennial? What was that moment like for you?
That moment was a bit surreal and a bit uncanny because it was the night before starting a new job, and I got this email saying I'd been selected, which felt like a very long odds pitch going for this, amazing opportunity in Antofagasta, Chile. And yeah, my first thought was amazement, disbelief, and then there was a lot of, how am I going to make this all work for time? I've got 2 young kids, and so from there it was a process of a lot of planning to fit it all in, and also figuring out technical things. All of that stuff flashed through my head at the moment I found out, but mostly delight.
And tell us a bit about Glass Sponge, the work that you showed there, and how did you come to choose that as your subject?
This was very much inspired by the curatorial concept of dark ecosystems. So I was thinking around life in the deep, thinking of desert deep life and ocean deep life. And I did a little bit of research in Chile, just what's been going on, and I found, or specifically in the marine space, and I found out there'd been an expedition off the coast of Chile that found over 100 new species, including new species of glass sponge. And I saw pictures of these glass sponges, and they just looked so intricate and beautiful to me that I thought, I think I could make something that is inspired by that. And it really speaks to that theme for me of dark ecosystems, of things that live in the depths, and how to bring that into light.
Yeah. Our core question today is, can art help us see what's disappearing before it's gone? What is your response to that?
I like the question, Andre. I think there's a little bit of fatalism in the question that I don't subscribe to with this work. Before it's gone, kind of suggests that we are going to lose things. And I think obviously we're in a time of environmental crisis. It's a polycrisis. You've got climate change, biodiversity loss, and all these different crises that are converging. I also think that the future is not yet written, and it is not too late. And contemplating the sea sponge, I just wonder how we would make different decisions if we considered life on the time horizon of the sea sponge. I didn't know that they are the oldest creatures.
Really?
They are, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
No, and so, many people believe they have the longest history, and just thinking back to, how would we make decisions if we were on the time horizon of a sea sponge?
Yeah, that is weird to think about.
But in terms of your question, before things are gone and disappearing things, obviously with environmental issues, there is a lot that is at stake currently.
Yes.
One of the other artists at the Seiko Biennial did this beautiful work called Whisper of the Stars. This was a Russian artist currently based in Brazil called Oksana Rudko, and she is a sound artist, and she'd made this work which was based on a sound in Siberia that is disappearing specifically because of climate change.
Wow.
And she got a bunch of people around South America to re-record what they, like an interpretation of it using beams. And they were on the pier in these listening posts so people could come and listen. And I think it's very much that thing of making the invisible visible and getting people to reflect, what would we lose if we lose the sound? What else could we lose?
Yeah, definitely.
And how? Yeah.
What on that, do you see yourself more as an artist or an environmental advocate, or a bit of both?
I think I primarily see myself as an artist, but I am interested in questions of the environment and environmental advocacy within that, because I think the work seeks to ask questions and get people to reflect on themselves and the things around them. I think in terms of environmental advocacy, there are lots of people who do that work better, and specifically in terms of using clear language. The late Rod Oram was inspiring for me in that sense, and he was very good at communicating, but with humility and respect for everyone. So yeah, I think the role of artist is, for me, separate, but yeah, I am inspired by environmental advocates as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you think an artwork can change anyone's behaviour, or is its role just to spark awareness?
I would love to say yes, obviously, that art can change the world. I think ultimately people and communities make the changes that they see required, and art is a little piece of the puzzle in terms of that. So I don't think I can say, yes, art is going to help people, suddenly change everything or make big changes in their life. But I do think art has a way of approaching topics from a different way, a different perspective. It might give people a different in to a conversation, and yeah, encourage them to reflect differently. It also has a way of looking across different, sometimes siloed perspectives to bring a sort of zoomed out view on them. And I think if that is one piece of a puzzle to enact change, then I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm just thinking also with the glass sponge, why did you choose to work with recycled shade cloth for that specifically? Unusual material.
Yeah, well, it is. I use a lot of found and recycled materials, and I'm interested in industrial materials. And this one I used specifically, it inspired the work as well as the work inspiring the material. So it's a bit of a circle there, because I had a bunch of it left over from another project, and I saw the picture of the glass sponge and that kind of lattice effect, and it reminded me of the shade cloth that I had. But then also, I'm interested in the land impacts on the ocean. We have a lot of threats to marine life, including for sea sponges, there's bottom contact fishing methods, there's ocean mining, there's microplastics that are found right at very deep levels, but also land impacts. And the shade cloth is a little bit of a metaphor for that. So I had a bunch of it left over, and then I got the rest from a farm in Kirikiriroa, called up the farmer who had it on Facebook Marketplace, and he agreed to send it to me. And I had to water blast it to get it usable. There's quite a lot of processing involved in using recycled materials. But then, yeah, it's also robust. It is obviously plastic, and yeah, there is that tension between, it's a very robust material for the needs of the installation, but it's also looking at ocean, plastics in the ocean and the land impacts.
Kind of on that note, it has a fragility to it, the work, but it also feels quite strong looking at it. Was that a deliberate metaphor?
I think so, yeah. It's this, I'm interested in dualities and things that are contradictory. There's a kind of tension between them, and it does look fragile. It looks kind of like industrial lace or giant scale lace. And that is very much inspired by the lattice of these glass sponges. But all those circles I cut by hand with a heat knife. And so there was literally a fragility to it, because, what if the whole thing unravels? It didn't. It's a heat knife, so it seals it as I go. But also it is robust because it is made of this plastic. And so I like that, yeah, it looks fragile, but really it's not. And I think there's a similar thing thinking of sea sponges themselves. You think of the threats, but also they've been around a long time. They are porous, they adapt, they filter, they breathe.
Yes.
Yeah, so interested in those different perspectives working together.
What about Debbie, making a work like this change the way that you think about the environment as a person?
I think this artwork is probably an evolution. I think all the artworks that I've made and engaged with progressively have changed how I think about the environment over time. So this will be one stepping stone, and I'm sure it'll change again in the future. But I think I might previously have come at this very much like, this is what humans are doing, this is what humans need to do, and it's very centered around the human experience. And for this one in particular, when I started learning about sea sponge and the glass sponge, I was so inspired, and I was like, this story is central. I watched a documentary made by Dr. Ocean Mercier, and she was profiling the work of Dr. Hemi Cumming, all about blending sort of science and Mātauranga Māori to understand how we can be using sea sponge in medical research to find cures for HIV, cures for cancer.
Wow.
It's incredible understanding.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
HIV as well?
Yeah.
Gosh.
And then also recently I saw you can grate down a sea sponge into a bowl of salt water and it will rebuild itself in the salt water.
way.
Yeah, which is uncanny.
That's so spooky a bit as well.
It's like memory on a cellular level, you know? I think the sea sponge knows who it is and where it comes from in a way that I can only dream of.
Just regenerate like that. It's so weird.
Yeah, which is uncanny. And I think there's a wisdom in that we don't necessarily, well, I certainly hadn't previously considered sea sponges as having.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about, what was it like to exhibit on such an historic wharf in Antofagasta in Chile with the other artists from all sorts of different countries had artists represented on that wharf with their work, right, alongside yours?
Yeah, it was a really awesome experience, and I think one that made the work feel so well supported and appreciated was the curatorial cohesion that we had on this wharf, because it wasn't just like, here's my work, it was how the work spoke to the other works. You know, so I mentioned the work by Oksana, and there was another artwork made out of fishing nets, and I've worked a lot with fishing nets, and it's kind of like looking at these giant nets Federico had strung up, and it kind of looks over at how the sea sponges speak to that. And then this graphic work by Eduardo that was kind of like, as you walk along the wharf and then you look up and there are the sea sponges, and behind that Victoria, who's from Iceland, and her giant dress, like the scale changed between all these different works. Also with the very beautifully handmade, intricate work of Anu at the very beginning of the pier. They all have very different materiality and different ways of approaching the same theme, but they work together very nicely. So that was very cool to be part of, yeah.
You mentioned also dark ecosystems, I think was the theme
Yes.
of the biennial. How did that influence your thinking into when you were creating Glass Sponge?
Yeah, well, I was thinking at the time, another work that I was contemplating or developing was around mycelial networks. So I was thinking around in the depths and networking and all of these different ways of being. And I think there is a perception by some people that maybe what is down very deep, if we don't understand it, it isn't there. You know, like we can put things, nothing is out in the desert. There's this vast expanse of nothingness. Down in the deep ocean, nothing's there, so we can do whatever we want down there. But actually there is an amazing abundance of life. And just because we don't understand it doesn't mean that it's not there.
That's a big philosophical question.
Yeah, I think so. What else about the dark ecosystems? That's such an evocative theme for me because it was so open, and I really am interested in, again, the dualities between the darkness and the light, like thinking of the depths of the ocean and it's very dark, bringing that up into the light of the pier and this very like bright, different shades of white sea sponge out there. And also, again, the very, very old creature that's newly discovered. So again, that tension of those different perspectives. Yeah.
How does how does the location become part of the artwork? Because as well as the Atacama Desert, you have work showed here in Wellington with Whairepo, which people know and love. How does it become part of that, Debbie?
I think for me, working site-specific installation, the site informs the work. So for me, I was reading about Chile and I saw the picture of the pier, which was vast and big, and my response to that was it needs to be a big work. This is the biggest work I've ever made. You know,
Really?
it's sort of, how tall in the end? 8 7 meters.
God, that is big.
6 meters. 6 meters is the tallest of it. Sorry. And it's very big. And I think also the subject matter, like for me, contemplating this view out to the ocean made me think about the ocean, made me think about the effects with the ocean, and also interacting with the elements. So I did get told it was windy in Antofagasta.
Was it?
It's not windy.
Oh,
I
it
come
was
from
not.
Wellington.
You have a different
kind
barometer
of,
for wind.
exactly, a different
Right.
baseline of what is windy. But they did move a little bit in the wind, like you might expect underwater sea sponges to move a
They're
little.
kind of gentle,
Very gentle.
bobbing.
Yeah, but not the same sort of 100-kilometre-an-hour winds we need a spec for here in Wellington. But also the sun, collaborating with the elements on that pier, they're very exposed, but it also meant that the sun shifting across the work during the day would create these shadows that shifted. And as the weather changed, they have completely different mood in a way you just don't get in a gallery. Like, it's very different working outside in a space so open.
What about, how do you hope audiences remember Glass Sponge, Debbie? Not only Chilean audiences that would have been able to see it in person, but also New Zealanders who might have seen it online.
Oh, I think, we're in a time of war and genocide, and it can feel like frivolous to be making art that hopes to bring joy, but I do think also that it is important to find ways of bringing joy. So I hope it makes people curious and maybe that they find it delightful.
Yeah.
Like, I've had people come up to me with a picture of glass sponge that they found on their phone and say, look at
Really?
this. Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
I think that is engaging with the topic and getting excited about something they hadn't maybe looked at before. And for me, that is success, I hope they find it delightful. That someone might have spent 100 hours cutting out holes in this shade cloth that they cleaned with a water blaster, and just to share it with people. So yeah.
We need that, I think, these days. Yeah,
think
it's
so.
it's hard. It's hard these days, So any little bit of joy, I think, is really it's important. That's what art is for.
I hope so.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, just before we finish, Debbie, also, I think you've brought in an object
Yes.
from your creative life to share with us. Can you tell us what it is and why you brought it in?
Yes. So this is my little box. It is pen tools for lino cutting. I think, I don't know, from the 1930s.
Old, from the 30s.
I think so, doing
wow.
my online research. I found this at a little op shop just out of Auckland on the way to visit family out north, and I just liked the look of it. I was intrigued, I was curious, which is always a good sign for me. It makes me think of possibility, because when I bought this, I certainly hadn't done any lino cutting since school. Picking it up and actually trying to use it, which it sat in the drawer for 5 years, and then I started doing a little bit of lino cutting about, 3 months ago. In the process of this whole big thing, I took it out and started experimenting, and it's that thing of learning something from scratch. I work with a lot of new materials and constantly having to problem solve and figure things out, so this reminds me that, it's okay to always be a beginner, learn something new. And practice, I think, is a thing that I try and remember, that my art making is a practice. I started a new daily practice, which only happened in the last sort of year and a half since becoming a parent. I've got 2 young kids, and how does the art practice fit into my life? I draw daily, just a little sketch, and I started making those sketches into little lino cuts.
Oh, no way.
Using this.
So you do actually use it as well?
I do actually, it's new, so I'm still learning. I'm certainly not a lino cutter, but I like the practice of figuring out how to make something. I also like the feel. You can
is it all right to have a touch?
Yeah, and it's got all these different little blades.
It almost looks like a pipe or something, It feels very old, actually genuinely old.
It is, yeah. It's actually, depending on the time perspective, not compared to a sea sponge.
I love also, not compared to a sea sponge.
But it's also got the name P. Macmillan on the back there, and I like thinking, who was P. Macmillan?
P. Macmillan.
Yeah, so who owned this and did they use it?
Yeah.
And what was their life like? And it makes me curious.
I love it. Maybe you have to put D fish on the
Scratch it
other
out.
side or something.
Yeah, add to that. Have that story about it for the next user.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Debbie.
Thank
I
you,
really
Andre.
appreciate your time and it's been a great chat.
Yeah,
Thank
it's been
you.
awesome. Thank you for having me.
You're very
Yeah.
welcome. I'm André Chumko, and this was Articulate. Next time, another big question and another conversation with someone shaping the way we see our world. If you'd like to see more conversations like this, find the full series on YouTube at thepost-nz or at thepost.co.nz/articulate. I'll see you next time.